Boom. Good. It's a really good ride. Nice. Oh. That sucks. Welcome. Oh, sorry, audience. I don't know what's going on. There we go. Hello. Sorry about the feedback, everyone. And I'm listening to the delay. I'm getting terrible feedback here. Sorry, audience. Bear with me while I try to get this handled. Okay, so we gotta just turn this down, turn that back down, get this stuff all down. Oh boy, that's frustrating sounding. Hello. Sorry, audience. Bear with me. I'm trying to get this all handled for you. And I can hear how frustratingly terrible this sounds. It's just screaming with my voice. Not good. Okay, I'm going to do some unplugging and plugging in. Bear with me, audience. You're not going to use your headphones, right? No. Okay. Oh boy. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. What the heck is going on here, boys and girls? I'm just adjusting things, and I don't know what I'm adjusting, so I apologize and bear with me, as I know it's sounding terrible out there in radio land.
This game is up all the way here.
Alright, hello. Did that make any difference? Let's see. Wow, that's nice. Your mic sounds good finally.
Mine does?
Yes.
Okay.
So you're sounding good. Wow. It's like a terrible feedback. Bear with me, audience. We're going to get this figured out for you. Hang on one moment. That's not bad. It's like a hum. Almost like when we had the light. These aren't good enough. That sound. Oh my gosh. Well, geez Louise. I just unplugged it. Give a couple more things, a couple more tries. The output. Adjust this. Okay. It's just a terrible feedback. It's like back here. Oh. That's it. The output was turned up too high. That sounds a little better, Radio Land. So I apologize about that, everyone, and welcome back to the 2218's Attitude for Gratitude weekly podcast. Please message me. I put my number up here. If it's just terrible on your end, let me know. You can message me directly or just put it on this line as well. I'm taking my headphone out, so I won't be able to hear the way the show sounds anymore. The delay just messes me up way too much. 2218, it's where the podcast is being held from, and that's where you can come find some recovery at. Every day there's a meeting here at this club, 2218 First Avenue South. The guys that we have reoccurring on the show, Rick and Jesse, they do run a 4-step workshop. That is every Wednesday at 6:30 in the auditorium. And they always do fellowship after, but it doesn't matter where you're at in your step work. Just come with an open mind. And thank you, Jesse. He messaged me. The feedback isn't that bad when I'm talking. Perfect. So we'll just remain trying to talk. Tonight I'm going to be trying to fill Jesse's shoes with reading He is on his way home, I believe, from a trip from. I'm going to let him tell you guys about it next month when he gets here, but he's doing some life stuff that's all positive. But back to 2218. Like I was saying, this is where you can come find some recovery. Every fellowship basically has a meeting here at this club. There's Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, Crystal Meth Anonymous. I believe Al-Anon is in the house. I don't know if they have the Gamblers Anonymous back in yet. I know there's lots of fellowships that are trying to make their way back. COVID made, the recovery community took a hit when COVID came around. And I've shared about this so many times. Is 2218 was one of those clubs that made sure to keep their doors open. And I'm forever grateful for that. Zoom was awesome. Zoom served a purpose for many people. That human interaction thing, that's what worked for me, and that's what I got here at 2218. And it's something I'm forever grateful for. So this club here, the Alamo Society of Minneapolis, you'll see it scrolling along the bottom of your screen, but it's our vision statement. It's to be the premier Alamo clubhouse serving the greater Twin Cities that offers support and strength to those who suffer from addiction and their families. Any type of recovery, like this club's got it going on. The other thing I wanted to talk about was becoming a member of this club and getting involved with 2218. The membership is down quite a bit. I was just talking to a fellow named Bobby outside. They have a men's meeting here every Friday night, and a lot of people with some long-time recovery that have been going to that meeting. I didn't ask how long the meeting's been going on for, but I know it's been going on for quite some time here, and there's a lot of recovery in there. I'd say a couple hundred years amongst the guys that are in there, but he was telling me that I think membership's under 100. It's just over. It's somewhere around the 70 mark, and I don't know. 5 years ago, this club had 1,200 members. So that's what keeps this club going is membership. So come on down, find yourself some type of meeting that works for you, and become a member of this club. It's very affordable. It's a club. It's the Alamo Club, and make it yours. We've had Jen on the show who talks about some of the service work she does here. There's so many different things you can come down here and be part of. For helping keep the grounds clean, and planting flowers or what have you. Working at the front desk, just helping the newcomer that walks through that door looking for a meeting. You can be part of someone's success. It's pretty gratifying when you get part of this whole lifestyle, or call it what you will. It's kind of that 12-step, giving it back to the community. So another thing is, like, if you got community service hours, you can come down here and get them filled. There's always stuff to be done here at the club, and I just strongly suggest to come down here and be part of it. Another thing is, we have last week, when we were in Arkansas, I let someone down there assist with some of our settings, and now from what I've seen and been told, people are having a tough time getting on here through Facebook. And if that's the case, if anyone's reaching out to you telling that, go to YouTube. We pay for 3 different services, and YouTube is one that will carry the show live. And we've been just getting a lot more feedback that YouTube has been almost a better platform. For our end, we get the live messages regardless. I'm not sure if I'm able to respond to those messages on YouTube, but we're figuring it out. Like I said, it's not that it's a one-man show right now, but Elena will be back at some point. She's just, she shared quite a bit on here about, what goes on with her life. She's got a couple of daughters that are, going to school, and they're growing up, and she's dealing with that. That's part of her life right now, and sometimes we have to take care of our responsibilities, and right now hers lie with her kids and her life, and that's quite all right and understandable, and we'll welcome her back when she does come back. Other than that, I'm figuring out as I go, just like I've been telling you guys for the last few months, and as long as Jesse was sure about what he said, that means you guys are hearing me. That means we got a show going on. Now here's that other side of things is Rick is here. We're on step 10 tonight. I'm going to be trying to read. I'm going to be trying to fill Jesse's shoes tonight. So I'll read. He'll share about what I just read or jump in when it's time to jump in, and I'll bumble along like normal. Other than that, though, let's check in a little bit. How's your month been going since I last saw you?
Good. Yeah.
Has it? Any big excitements or anything going on? That's
not really.
Just still recovering, doing your recovery thing.
Yeah.
4-step workshop, is that, how has attendance for that been going? Have people been showing up?
Oh yeah, we did a few. Anywhere from 10 to 25 maybe.
A lot of I guess this is a question about the 4-step workshop, and then we'll jump into 10-step. When we had you guys on, I think originally, and I think it was Mary Jo and a couple of her girls, but I think it was after that show that you guys had quite a few people that showed up. And my question about that is, do you guys get a lot of because I know she brought a lot of her sponsees. Do you guys see a lot of that, the sponsor-sponsee relationship walking through the door there? Like, you see what the question is?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, we get a few.
Is it, I mean, how do do sponsors come to you and ask for advice on stuff about running the 4-step with their sponsees?
Not really, no.
It's not. It's listen up, get what you can out of what we have to offer, and then run with it.
Well, we're just reading the book and sharing experiences of what the book is saying, and that's all I'm doing here. That's all I'll do tonight.
Like we've done for the last 10 months.
Right.
Perfect. All right. Well, we are jumping.
Is my mic working okay, by the way?
You know what? I believe so. Yeah, you're sounding great. Sorry about the big pause you guys are going to hear. But yeah, you're good from where you're at. Usually I have that thing in your mouth when you're talking, but it's good.
Yeah, good.
I think it's these 2 ports are the good ones, and then I usually jump to the 4th and 5th. I got to get an engineer in here to show me how to work the equipment. So where are we starting? I think you said page 84?
Yeah, we're in the middle, right after the promises.
Did we end up reading the promises last week? Or last month?
I think so, yeah.
Did we? Okay. Okay.
Where it says, are these extravagant promises we think not? They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them.
Perfect. This thought brings us to step 10, which suggests that we continue to take personal inventory and continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. We vigorously commenced this way of living as we cleaned up our past. We have entered the world of the Spirit. Our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. This is not an overnight matter. It should continue for our lifetime. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. When these crop up, we ask God at once to remove them. We discuss them with someone immediately, and we make amends quickly. If we have harmed anyone, we make amends quickly if we have harmed anyone. Then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. Love and tolerance of others is our code.
Yeah. So it sounds like the 4th step, 4th column, doesn't it? Continue to watch for selfishness. That's always the first question in inventory. Dishonesty, that's usually the second. Resentment and fear. He says when these crop up. It doesn't say if.
It's when.
When. They're going to crop up. Okay? This is their experience. It's mine too. When these crop up, we ask God at once to remove them. So I need help. So we're asking for help. It's we discuss them with someone immediately and make amends quickly if we have harmed anyone. So there's the process. Then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. Love and tolerance of others is our code. We were passing on in our home group we've got a combination on the locker,
Okay.
and we had a new trusted servant coming in, and there was a guy in our meeting. This is many years ago now. He says he wanted the code for the locker,
Mm-hmm.
and he says, "What's the code?" And a friend of mine named Pete was in the meeting that night, and he looks at him and says, "Love and tolerance."
That's a good one. That is our
That's
code.
our code.
That's our
Yeah.
code.
So we vigorously commenced this way of living as we cleaned up the past. So as you've gone through step 9, and it doesn't matter. You have to work the 10th step right from the beginning. I know this from my own experience because I was making a lot of mistakes. In my early sobriety, until I wrote inventory, I was constantly causing problems. I was volatile. I wasn't able to control myself. It's not like I could stop and say, oh, let's be reasonable here. As soon as the anger came, I was at somebody's throat. I just could not control myself. Well, that's the way it was. So
those key things: selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, fear.
Yeah.
They pop back into the forefront.
Yeah. So this says continue to take personal inventory, and when we're wrong, promptly admit it, right? Well, early on, I'm an atheist. I'm a militant atheist.
Right.
I'm having a heck of a time with the program because none of the steps look reasonable to me other than step 10. Step 10 is the only step that I had any sense that I could actually work and have and be okay with it. See, because it didn't say anything about God in it.
Okay.
So I'm going to topic meetings. I'm searching out. I'm avoiding step meetings because I can't deal with the steps and I can't deal with all the God stuff. Very frustrating. So I'm about maybe a month and a half sober. And I've got a bunch of AA people helping me move my antique plumbing fixture store. Okay?
Which is no easy task.
No, this takes about 4 months in each direction. Giving guys crystal meth and carrying, 3-4 guys carrying toilets and pipe fittings
Full
and
cast iron tubs. Like, this is heavy stuff too.
Yeah, radiators for. I had hundreds of sinks and toilets.
Antique plumbing.
Yeah, everything is fragile. It's out of boxes, so it's a nightmare to move. You can't. If you chip something, it's worthless.
Mm-hmm.
You scratch it up, it's no good. You can't really use it. So I've got these guys, these AA people now. I'm sober. I'd moved this thing twice before, and now this is the 3rd time, and I really don't want to do this. This is a nightmare. But I have no choice. I got to get all this stuff out of where it was when I went into treatment.
Right.
So now I've come out. I'm in the process of that, and we're moving. And we're moving from over in downtown Minneapolis on 11th and 3rd Avenue.
Okay.
Right on the corner. And I'm moving over to 5th and Washington. Portland, Washington area. Actually, it's closer to Portland. There's a bar there called the Mill Inn. And we're moving in right next door. I rented a space there. I'm trying to consolidate this stuff because it's nowhere near big enough to handle all this. But we're moving, and I got these guys helping me, the AA people, and we're all sober now. So I go into the bar with these guys to buy them lunch because they're helping me. And it's full of people. This is a downtown restaurant bar, and it's loaded with business people, okay? And we get through eating, and there's 5 of us, counting myself. My buddies go out onto the street, and they're standing out there smoking, waiting for me to come out. I go up to the bartender to pay for the meal, and I hand him a $100 bill. And he gives me back change, and I grab it in a hand that I already had money in.
Sure.
Okay? And one of the problems when you're new is you have a lot of chaos in your head, if you're like me. And I was confused a lot about things. All right. I'm full of chaos. I haven't written inventory yet. Well,
I just plug the jug at this point.
Yeah, really.
Okay.
I'm avoiding the steps. Other, 10th step, like I said, is the only one that looked like anything I could consider. And I grabbed this money, and I had money in my hand, and I turn around and I start walking away from the bartender. And I'm counting, and I'm trying to figure. I'm confused about what I got in my hand. And I get outside, and I think this guy cheated me out of $20. I didn't say anything to my buddies. I just turned around. Now, nothing irritates a thief more than somebody stealing from them. It's just like when you've been a liar all your life and somebody lies to you, you just go crazy. You can't stand it. You want to kill them. It's not like you can stop and say, oh, let's be reasonable. I am just going from 0 to 120 in about a half a second. And I turn around and I storm back into the bar to talk to this guy. I'm pissed. And I go in there and the place is full of people. It's lunchtime. They're all dressed up in suits and stuff. And I say, hey, bartender, you cheated me out of $20. Now, he's away from me at this point.
So it's loud. People heard
loud, right in front of everybody. He says, no, I didn't. I said, yeah, you did. And then I started to slander him. I called him names. I just went crazy. I lost my mind. I couldn't control myself. I was rageful. And he didn't want nothing to do with me. And I turned around and I stormed out of the bar. I called him a cheat, a liar, whatever.
Yeah.
Swore at him.
We're good at that. Yes.
Just absolutely insane. And I turned around and I start walking out of the bar, and it's like somebody's setting concrete blocks on top of my head. I'm getting heavier and heavier and heavier as I rage inside. And I get outside on the street, and my buddies are standing out there. Now, I looked insane, I'm sure. As soon as I walked out there, they're looking at me like, what happened to you, And then I just unloaded on them. I said, this guy cheated me. And I went off and I told them all about what happened. And I got some information from one of them. I don't recall exactly how it came, but apparently I had given somebody $20 or something. And all of a sudden I realized, my God, I'm wrong. I'm wrong. And I thought to myself, oh, geez, what comes into my mind. Now think about this. I'm not working any steps.
Right.
But the one that comes into my mind at this point was the 10th step. Continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admit it. And I thought, oh, I don't want to go back in there after what I did. Last thing I want to do is go back into that bar.
Right.
And then I get a thought. It sounds like my voice in my head, but it's not my idea. And it's a reasonable thought. It says to me, Rick, and it used my name. And I didn't like this. I've had this happen a number of times. It's irritated me. It says, now why would I say Rick to myself? But the voice sounded very stern, yet not mean. But it said, Rick, are you going to work the program, or are you just giving it lip service? Oh. And I had made a commitment,
At this time, you didn't believe in a higher power, right?
No.
Okay.
And I had made a commitment about a month earlier, maybe a little more than that I'd do anything, right, to not live the way I'd been living. And that commitment was still in force. I'll do anything. Well, here it is. Am I going to do this? Are you going to work the program, or are you just giving it lip service? And I thought, oh, I don't want to hear that, But I knew it was true, so I knew I had to go back into the bar. So I turn around and I know I got to do this.
Right.
So I start walking, and I'm telling you, the thoughts are very rapid, but I'll tell you what they were. And it was a very short distance. I mean, I'm walking maybe 30 feet. Maybe.
Back in into the bar.
Yep. And I'm walking back in, and as I turn and start going in, I'm thinking this. Well, I'll just kind of slither up to the end of the bar, and I'll say, "Hey, bartender," and I'll whisper, "Will you come over here a minute? I want to talk." And then that's what I wanted to do. And I get that same voice again. Sounds like my voice in my head, but it's not my idea. It says, "No, Rick, you have to clean up the mess exactly the way you created it, loudly and in front of everybody." And I just thought, oh, I don't want to do that. That's the last thing I want to do. But I knew I had to do it. Now, why would I have to do that? Look, this guy's livelihood is based on his character. And I just slandered his character in front of everybody. He's paid by his character as a bartender.
Yeah.
If he was just on his wage, he wouldn't be able to work. There wouldn't be enough money.
Yeah.
And I slandered his character in front of everybody. And I knew I had to go in there and do it the same way once I heard that. And I went in there and I said, "Hey, bartender," and I'll be darned if the guy didn't come over. I don't know that I would have gone near a guy like
after
me,
you just
after
attacked
what I did to him.
Yeah, okay.
After I just went after him big time.
Yeah, because we shared about this on another show about the money on the dresser. Your head, you were certain.
Oh no,
there's no doubt in your mind this man shorted you. He stole $20.
That's right.
So your head. So then you went into mode of, you stole from me, and I'm going to tell you about yourself.
Well, and you see, the problem is when you've been a thief all your life,
right?
It's just, it enrages you when somebody steals from you. And the reason is because of your own guilt. My own guilt was making me violent inside.
Is this one of those deals where it's, I think it was you guys, but like with fear or something, the things that bug you most are usually something within?
Well, always. But I'm going to give it another story about it.
Okay.
But this is the difference. Okay, so now I go in and this guy comes over to me. I'm shocked that he had the decency to do it, you know? And I looked at him and I said, "Hey, bartender, I was wrong. You were right. You didn't cheat me. I made a mistake. I'm sorry." And he looks at me. Now, talk about a class act. This guy looks at me and he says, "Apology accepted." Whoa. What a class way to handle that.
Yeah.
Apology accepted. And he turned and walked away. Whoa. And I'm telling you, that guy taught me something, because whenever somebody makes a mistake and acts crappy toward me, if I'm sincere, I will, and I mean what I say, I will look at them and say, "Apology accepted," because that negates it.
You didn't go through it, you grew through it.
Yeah.
You got something out of it.
This guy was really a class act. And I turned around and I walked out of that bar and I got a boost out of this. I didn't get back to where I was before I made the mistake. I got a boost out of it. I was excited. I was high. I walked back up. I was just higher than a kite all day long. Why? A spiritual principle practice. When you do these things, you get a benefit out of it.
Right.
Now, I don't know what the other guy got out of it or how he felt, but he was just a class guy, man, you know. And I went out all day long. I was just excited and happy. How would I have been had I not done it? Miserable.
Oh yeah.
I'd have carried that guilt and that self-hatred.
Knowing about if you knew and didn't do nothing about it.
No, now here's the other thing about that. It had to be corrected in the moment because it was done in front of people. And you couldn't go back the next day. It wouldn't have the same effect, see. It had to be done right in front of everybody who was in there at that time. I'm so grateful I did that.
You wrote your wrong. I mean, you took care of it.
I straightened it out.
I'm not sure if now is the right time to ask. The voice you heard. Looking back now, and I picked you apart on something like this before when you shared another story, something similar where you heard a voice, and I was kind of drilling at you about knowing now what you know and believe what you believe now. Whose voice was that?
Well, I think it's the voice of the Spirit.
All right.
Okay, there's no question. These were not my ideas.
Right.
My ideas was to save face and slither in and do something that wouldn't have been effective.
Yeah.
See, this was effective. I didn't want to do it, but I got to tell you, that was an early experience that taught me the value of working these steps for me,
Right.
regardless of what the other guy gets.
Yeah, and it's my head takes these crazy turns, but to get the benefit you got out of that day came from a wrong you did, but you believe this happened. You believe he took $20 from
Right.
whatever. You believe someone stole from you,
Right.
and you reacted
Because of my own guilt for being such a thief
There you
all
go.
my life.
right.
You see, and the thing is, even if he wouldn't have accepted it, what if he would have looked at me and called me a name or
Right.
something?
F
It wouldn't
you,
have mattered.
right.
It would not have mattered
You cleaned up
because
your
I
side of the street.
straightened it out.
Yeah.
But this guy had some style. He had some class.
Which meant, like you said, moving forward through your life, how was it 30 years, 25 years, whatever. This was a long time ago.
Right.
And you still remember the story and still apply apology
Oh,
acceptance.
this was 35 years ago. This was literally 35 years ago. You know what's interesting about this? Okay, fast forward from that point about 15 years. I'm in a board meeting at the club here. I think it was a Founders Day meeting, if I remember correctly. It doesn't really matter what it was.
Okay.
But I'm in a meeting, and there was a guy in here who worked in the office who was a little touchy at times and stuff, and he had some problems. I don't know what all they were, but we were in the meeting, and he got angry at me, and we were just about to take a break, and come back. It was a I think it was a Founders Day conference meeting, because there were just like three of us who used to run Founders Day. We used to do that at the club here. Founders Day,
Minnesota, the one they're doing at the DoubleTree, coming up.
Well, we used to do that with three people here. I was on that conference for 16 years.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, I was picking all the speakers and bringing them in and flying. I was doing all that stuff.
Are you still involved with the Founders Day stuff?
I'm not anymore. I'm a trustee now.
Okay.
But we got it. Bob and I were the ones who pushed to get it out of the club because we were killing it. We were destroying it. See?
Why? Just because of the?
Just because it was. We needed the community to take this thing over. There was too much trouble trying to, and there were three of us who were running it. We had a chairman, who was on the board, and we had a guy in the office who would schedule the seating for the banquet, the dinner, and then I was doing all the advertising and getting the speakers and all that stuff. So I did that for years. So now this guy who was here at the club, I'll give you a name just for the heck of it, Tim.
Okay. Perfect.
Not this Tim, but
no.
So he goes crazy on me in the board meeting, in the conference meeting. He just gets, I don't remember what the issue was, but he just lost it. And he verbally attacked me and all this stuff. And he stormed out of the room, and we were going on break anyway, so we broke. And then we came back in, and he was talking to Bob, I think, out in the foyer area in the club here. And then we went back into the meeting, and we met again. Now, Tim we used to do step classes on Wednesday nights before we started doing the workshop here on Wednesdays. We were doing it on Saturday.
You and this guy who blew up on you.
Bob.
Okay.
Bob. And, Tim was just coming there on the step classes before Bob and before we were doing the workshop down there. They used to give people a free membership if they went through the step classes. Okay? And there were a number of us teaching the step class. There were 5 classes. I did one of them, and we would rotate.
But just come here and work the 12 steps through these classes.
Yeah, well, that's how you became a member. You would get a free membership for a period of time if you showed up at the step classes. Okay? So you get a free membership to the club, for a period of time.
Hey,
So-
better yourself, and we'll
Yeah.
give you
So
free
Tim
membership.
was doing service work, and he was sitting there signing people in and validating that they went through all 5 classes, and then they'd give them the membership card. See, so he was actively doing service work like that. Well, he had heard me tell that story that I just told you about the bartender.
Yeah.
Okay, he'd heard it many times. He'd sat in that meeting and heard it. You know,
All right.
he heard all of us talk about these things over a period of years. Well, now he just blew a gasket at me in the meeting, and we go back after break, and we're sitting there, and he comes in, and he makes an apology to me, exactly the way I did it to the guy in the bar.
Okay.
He was very decent and straightened it all out and all that sort of thing. And I don't remember for sure what I said to him. I probably, if I had any sense, would have, and I think I did, I would have said apology accepted.
Right.
You know, because
I thought that's where you're going with this.
yeah, well, I don't recall for
Okay.
sure what I said, because this is a long time ago.
Right.
Probably 20 some years ago, 25 years ago.
All right.
So he comes back in and he does that, and he cleans it up, and then after the meeting, he's out in the foyer area talking to Bob and some people, and I come out there and I find out from them that he did that because he heard my talk in the step class talking about that experience.
That story.
And that's why.
So he did it. So it was a big game.
No, he did it because he knew he was wrong.
Oh, well,
But
Okay.
you know, he heard my story about what I had to do, and he knew he had to do the same thing. And he came, so that whole experience came back around maybe 15 years later, 10, 15 years
full
later.
circle. Yeah.
Full circle.
Wow.
Isn't that weird?
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it was an interesting, so I've been on both sides of that experience. Isn't that interesting?
And some bartender who was a good dude.
Yeah.
A good guy.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And he came in and did exactly the same thing to me because he knew he was wrong, and he knew he had to do it loudly and in front of everybody.
Because he blew up in front of everybody.
He blew up in front of her, and he did exactly. But he told me that that's why he did it. So
Promptly admitted.
yeah, and that's something.
That's awesome. That is. That's
So you
full
never
circle.
know how
You
this
don't.
stuff's going to happen or what's going to come of it, but it's fascinating. As you stay sober, you're going to have experiences, and then when you stay sober a long time, you have a lot of different things happen.
And the nice thing is too now is we remember them.
Yeah,
We remember them. And that's a story that I will regurgitate too, as I have, and these are now part of my experiences.
Right.
What you're sharing with us and anyone listening.
Yeah.
When you were sharing about the gentleman from prison, that I think it was last week we were talking about some amendments, and it came up. One of the people on the show said, "How do I make an amends to the state when I stole from the state?" There's no. So I kind of regurgitated your story.
Yeah.
I said, we have this recurring guest who comes on, and you can't. And it's not that you were in here tooting your horn, but this guy was going to cost the state $30,000 plus a year.
just being incarcerated.
Just being incarcerated, and you doing some service work, bringing a meeting in, something you said he heard helped change his whole life, where now this career criminal who would be back in prison every year costing the state $30,000 minimum is not doing that. So there's money, and everyone, the light bulbs click. And that's an indirect. You weren't doing that to get a 30,000. You weren't.
I didn't. He followed me into my meeting, and I just brought him with me around to different things, different commitments that I had going on. Bob and I were going out to the retreat, putting on 4-step workshop, and he came with, and we put a book in front of him. He was 21 years old, and said, "Read, you read, and we'll talk."
There you go.
And that's what we did, and he did, and he learned the program, and he started to do it, and it changed his life.
And we know.
And he's still sober. He's 20 years now.
Yeah, there's career criminals. I mean,
saw another guy here, another guy that came out of the prison that I worked with a little bit, but I'm not responsible for their recovery.
No,
Don't get me wrong.
no,
I'm not
I
taking
get
any
that.
credit for their recovery.
But but I see the correlation. You're just of service. This is part of it. This is part of the recovery thing, the 12 step, we're giving back to benefit ourselves, of course, my own recovery, but I see the full circle in that. You're in there doing what you do for your recovery.
I just am doing what I do. I don't think twice about it.
I mean, what I try to get across to someone, it bugs me. I'm not coming up with their names. But it wasn't for you. It wasn't about this dollar amount. It wasn't about, oh, I got to make this amends, so I got to go to the prisons with these meetings. No, this is me doing the recovery I'm doing. This is part of your recovery, what you do normally, not for the reason of the heat exchange that you took money from. This was you doing the recovery you do, or whatever.
Strangely enough, it wasn't about money at the time, but when I started doing a lot of 12-step work, I was doing it to stay out of depression, and I saw the value in it helping me.
Yeah, you shared that too. Yes.
But the other thing is that I heard Chuck C. talk in his talks, and he talked about how he was rubbing out the record.
Rubbing out the record?
Yeah, record.
Oh, record. Okay.
Yeah, his record, his karmic record. Okay, his negative record, because there's a record of how you feel about yourself. And when you've been taking advantage and stealing from people and living a certain way, you're doing something wrong.
Right.
Okay, and then guilt just builds up, and somehow you've got to get. And then Chuck's idea was to reverse all that and rub out the record. Okay, so I heard that from him, and I thought about that, and I started doing more and more 12-step work to try and offset all the negative karma that I knew was going to come on me. And the worst part, and I'd like to say I had some noble just reason, but it wasn't that. It was purely self-interest. It wasn't selfish because it wasn't without concern for others. It was with concern for others. So you can do for yourself with concern for others.
Right.
The problem is you can lie to yourself to no end on that one and start thinking you're being a good guy and all that. Then you become a big ass, and
we've all experienced those people
because you're boasting about it or whatever you're doing.
Yeah, integrity comes into play there. I think you're absolutely right, and I kind of want to. We've had people share a lot about mental health, depression, and you kind of not skimmed over it, but I know we shared about it on previous shows was the benefit you were getting, the feelings, the joy, like you said about the whole rest of your day when this bartender said, apology accepted. The high you were on, was there any depression that day? Was there any?
Not at all. I knew the value of doing these steps, of working it, of doing things you don't want to do out of integrity, not out of that's the thing. I knew I had to do it. Luckily, I was being guided. I didn't believe in a power greater than myself, but I was being guided anyway. I've done so much right by mistake. I didn't know what I was doing. I'm just following what they were writing in the big book. Seriously, I'm still many times doing things right by mistake. It's not like I sit down and I plan something out and I know what I'm doing. I'm just doing what's in front of me. Whatever's in front of me. I'm not trying to direct. I'm just doing. Here, I'll give you an example. I get up in the morning. I put my bib overalls on. I'm a part-time plumber. Okay. I don't even have a job, so I just get up. I put my overalls on and I go out the door, and I see what happens. And generally, almost invariably, somebody calls me while I'm over going to get some breakfast or something, and then I got a job for the day. It happens over and over and over. I just do what's in front of me. What's in front? Get up, put your clothes on, put your work clothes on. You don't have to have a job. Pretend like you have a job. Okay?
One foot in front of the other.
Just show up and see what happens, and see if stuff doesn't happen.
I didn't know that. I didn't know. We don't talk that much about the work side of things, even though we're basically in the same field, not line of work, but field. But I'm glad to know that's how you approach your days. I'm going to be bugging you.
And then if a job cancels out or something, I don't go crazy. I used to get upset by it. And now I just think, well, something better is going to happen. And it does. Something else comes along.
That's awesome.
You just
That
step
is.
back. I'm constantly stepping back. And after a while, you just live that way.
Right. It becomes normal.
It's just the normal, yeah.
I had a guy at Fairview named Bob Bauer who, long time, being my counselor, I think I can say that although he is in the program, but his big thing was always, it was written everywhere, do the next right thing. And I've heard that a lot in these rooms.
But the next right thing is kind of strange because how do you know what's right? What's right for you may not be right for the next guy.
And I share about this in early recovery. And I've said on the show how, and this is my own internal thinking, was those first few months, I came in these rooms, I came in here broken. My brain was so used to doing wrong. Doing right felt wrong. I didn't know what the next, I mean, I was raised right from wrong. I know what's right, but you come in here so cloudy. The next right thing. You're right. What your next right thing is might not be
wrong for the next or the other guy. You see, here's a way to offset that. To really not do that, not have a problem, because what you think is right might be causing a problem for somebody else because you can't see the big picture and you don't know. So I think of it this way today. Is it selfish or not? If you are stepping back from the selfishness, you will probably just do the next, and it will be the right thing. Might not seem like it's right for you, but if you just keep stepping back from the selfishness or taking advantage or trying to get something,
right,
you will be doing decent stuff. And you won't be harming anyone or causing problems for anyone else.
Yeah.
But this is the problem. And I remember I heard Joseph Campbell, he was a mythologist. He was a mythologist. He taught at Sarah Lawrence College for 40 years. He's probably our country's foremost authority in comparative religion.
You knew this guy?
No, but I listened. I watched a lot of his stuff. He did a series with Bill Moyers on the power of myth, and they're brilliant. But one of the things that I lost my train of thought.
You're talking about this Bill, or what's his name? The
Joseph
mythologist.
Campbell. Yeah.
We're talking about the next right thing.
Well, he says,
I'm a good host. The next right thing. All right. So this mythologist.
He said, whatever you do is always wrong for somebody.
Okay.
If you're directing it, whatever you do is always wrong for somebody. It will not be right for someone, somewhere. If I direct it, I can't tell. Here, I'll give you an example. I never understood that two people could win in the same situation. It always appeared to me that somebody had to lose, and it was going to be you, not me. Okay, that's the way I operated all my life. And when I got sober, it never occurred to me that two people could win in the same situation. Because if I direct it, I'm going to direct it to what I think is best for me.
Right.
Because I don't want to lose. And if somebody's going to lose, it's going to be you, not me.
Right.
There's where the problem is with doing the next right thing. The right thing for you may not be the right thing for them. But what if you look at it as selfishness and step back from the selfishness? That's different.
Yeah, that makes sense too, because if I'm going into this interaction and I'm being selfish about it, that's not good. The next right thing is not coming out of that.
No, if I'm going to look, if I come to you with the idea of giving you something, I mean, really not trying to manipulate you, but actually just to help you, I will have an experience probably decent.
Right.
Okay? But if I come with the idea of trying to manipulate you or take something, we're going to have a conflict. We're going to have a different experience.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah, that's a good analogy on it.
Yeah. So whatever you do is always wrong for somebody. I thought, whoa, that's an interesting statement.
Yeah, and there's so many levels to it too. I mean.
Oh yeah. So what if you just look for the selfishness, just stop trying to take and actually give. And I don't mean give to get. That's not giving. That's bartering for a return.
Right.
I mean, really, just out of the sake of being helpful. I want to be helpful. Because that's the way it does it in the big book, in the third step. The third step prayer just says, God help me to be helpful.
Right.
It's not even for your own benefit. It's to help others.
Just to
be a
help others.
service.
But in return, see, and that's why I say this a lot, and I've yet to come up with the right combination of words for this, but I've always said our predecessors, Bill, Bob, these guys, they were wizards. They were geniuses how they methodically came up with this program and how it really ends up working, and me doing good for you for all the right intentions ends up being good for me.
Well,
I mean,
but they made all the mistakes.
Yeah, they did it for us.
4 years of mistakes
Right.
when they wrote this book, so they wrote what worked. They didn't even have to sit down and think about, well, is this conceptually right or not? They didn't write that. They just wrote a book based on their collective experiences of what actually worked, not what's logical.
Yeah.
So, should we read on?
Yeah, I would. Yes.
Or you got something you want to?
No, I don't. It was going to go down a rabbit hole.
Bottom of 84 then.
Bottom of 84. And we have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol.
Ooh, anything or anyone. Oh my goodness. Isn't that a tall order?
Based not just alcohol. It's anything, anyone.
Yeah.
Even alcohol. For by this time sanity will have returned.
Hopefully. Doesn't mean you can't lose it.
Right. We will seldom be interested in liquor. If tempted, we recoil from it as from a hot flame.
If tempted.
If tempted, we recoil from it like a hot flame.
Yeah.
We react sanely and normally, and we will find that this has happened automatically. You shared about this earlier. It becomes the normal.
That's right.
It just becomes the normal. We will see that our new attitude towards liquor has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. That is the miracle of it. We are not fighting it. Neither are we avoiding temptation. We feel as though we had been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. We have not even sworn off. We have not even sworn off.
That's right.
Instead, the problem has been removed.
It's gone. It doesn't exist. Oh, I was going to say that.
It does not. It does not exist for us. We are neither cocky nor are we afraid.
That's a big deal. We're not cocky, but we're not afraid either.
Yeah. This is our experience.
That is our experience.
That is our experience. That is how we react, so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition.
Now, what does fit spiritual condition mean? Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. Continue to watch for them. When these crop up, when we ask God to help, we ask God for help.
You don't have to do this on your own.
Well, you can't do it on your own because you're going to want to get what you want from life and direct everything.
Yes, the director of our own play.
Yeah.
It is easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels.
They watch people do this. Stop working the program. Try and skate a little bit. Oh, I got the monkey off my back a little bit here, you know. Well, the circus isn't left down. Just because you got the monkey off your back, I tell you, all the crazy thoughts can be there, you know.
Rest on our laurels. Does that go back to Caesar times? What is laurels? Someone in my men's meeting Thursday night at New Hope, Alamo, someone explained this to me 4 years ago because I asked. I said, what is resting on? I've said it probably hundreds of times, never knowing what it meant. Resting on our laurels. Isn't laurels, do you know?
What did he say?
It was something back in the Caesar days, and the laurels were, I can't regurgitate it. One of the guys are listening, so I'd like him to write it in. I don't know. When we get to talking, I'll Google it.
You'd have to look up the
But
word.
the laurels, I think it was the leaves they wore around their head, but then I don't want to even, it's resting on something you're comfortable with, letting it slide.
Yeah.
I know it'll be fine, and I don't have to work on it no more. Just resting on what I think I already know is good.
Your establishments, your old ideas, Yeah.
Kind of like what they said prior to that. It's easy to let up the spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels, meaning, oh, we went through something good before, I can skate. Like you having the one experience, that bartender, you were high for the rest of that day, and then you just stop working on stuff and just rest on that one something.
You get a little relief, and Bill used to say it this way: the good is the enemy of the very best.
The good is the enemy of the very best.
Now this was a common phrase that Bill used to say. I found out it came out of the Oxford groups.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now the Oxford groups, we're not doing history on this, but that was basically where a lot of this was formed. That had 6 steps.
6 tenets. It was a forerunner to AA, but not for people who were alcoholic, for people looking to have a spiritual experience.
Okay.
Okay, so it had nothing to do with alcoholism, but the drunks were trying to sober up in the Oxford groups.
Okay, and that was working to because is there still Oxford group there?
I think it became moral rearmament or something. I don't know if it's still existing in any form or not. But strange how AA stayed around, but the Oxford groups kind of disappeared.
Yeah, I've heard that. So resting on our laurels is the definition on Google is be so satisfied with what one has already achieved that one makes no further effort.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what Bill would say. Okay. The good is the enemy of the very best. You achieve your good, physical sobriety.
Mm-hmm.
That will become, in time, the enemy of your very best if you don't continue to move.
Yep.
It's like standing on an escalator that's going down and you're walking up it. If you stop walking, you're going backwards.
Right. It's you don't live your life like a rocking chair. You feel like you're always moving, but you're still sitting in the same place.
Yeah, but you don't sit in the same place. That's the problem. Walk up a down escalator sometime, and then stop walking and see what happens.
Backwards.
You go backwards. And that's really a good analogy. But Bill used to say, the good is the enemy of the very best. That was an Oxford group idea. It came from out of the Oxford groups. But that was a common thing he used to say.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it's the same difference here. So we are headed for trouble if we do rest on our laurels.
Yeah.
For alcohol is a subtle foe. We are not cured of alcoholism. What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition.
Yeah, we got a daily reprieve.
Yeah.
And it's contingent on us maintaining, watching for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear.
Right. You know? Every day is a day when we must. Every day is a day that we must carry the vision of God's will into all of our activities. How can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done.
That's an Oxford group idea. Thy will, not mine, be done. That came directly out of the Oxford group.
These are thoughts which must go with us continuously. Constantly.
These are thoughts which must go with us constantly.
We can exercise our willpower along this line all we wish. It is the proper use of the will.
You see what they're saying here is, and you see people do this when they're new, and I've done it too, is that they'll try and fight their willpower. They'll fight with themselves, okay? They'll try and force themselves to be good. They don't want to be good, but they try and force themselves, see? And you can see the fight is on, okay? It's like trying to forgive something. You look at the infraction and you say, I'm right about it, and then you try and forgive the truth of what you think happened.
Okay.
The inventory showed me that I was wrong about what I thought. Okay? It didn't mean an event didn't happen. It just means that I was wrong. Somewhere I got thoughts in my mind that changed how I viewed things when I wrote the inventory. I didn't see I was bad. I saw I was wrong. That's a big difference.
Yeah.
But you see, if you try and forgive the truth, it's the same thing with this. We can exercise our willpower along this line all we wish. It is the proper use of the will. So I would suggest, personally, and this is what I do, don't fight your will. Redirect it into something that's positive, that'll help you. Okay, like 12-step work. Redirect it. All I did was redirect my will. I had a tremendous willpower. And it wasn't doing it. You can't, it's like fighting the booze. You can't fight the booze. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
You got to look for the selfishness, drop that, and the booze drops off. You don't want to get drunk. You don't want to, because when you're uncomfortable, you'll want to change how you're feeling.
Right.
Okay? But it doesn't do any good to fight the booze. Resolve the conflicts, and you won't need to drink. But to fight it actually gives power to it.
Yeah, you're right. Yes, that makes sense. You're right. Yeah, empowering it. That's the best way. That makes sense.
That's right.
I wasn't following for a second there, and yeah, that makes sense what you're saying.
Right.
You start fighting the booze, like you're giving it more power.
So he's saying we can exercise our willpower along this line all we wish. What is it? Thy will, not mine, be done. How can I best serve God? Right? God's will, not mine, be done.
Not mine.
Right. My will is to get what I want.
And that's where we come from. Prior to getting in these rooms, that's all I was doing.
Well, I didn't know any different.
Right.
That's all I knew.
Much has already been said about receiving strength, inspiration, and direction from Him who has all knowledge and power. If we have carefully followed direction,
We've gotten directions as we've gone through this.
Yes, it has been
Very direct ideas of what they did. This is what they did.
If we have carefully followed directions, we have begun to sense the flow of His Spirit into us. To some extent, we have become God conscious.
Oh boy.
We have begun to develop this vital sixth sense. But we must go further, and that means more action.
And that's what's in the big book. So basically, I think one of the ways that people think generally about this step is that I cause a problem, okay? I make a mistake. I treat my wife or my girlfriend or whoever it might be my kids. Maybe I act out in some way that's crappy. And then I leave the house in the morning and I think about it and I realize, geez, I really wasn't right about what I did. Or maybe I was right about the incident, about what happened, but I'm wrong about the way I handled it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can be right and wrong at the same time.
Yeah.
You can be right about the argument, but you can be wrong about the way you deal with it. See?
Oh, have I done that so many times in recovery?
Well, of course, everybody has. So now you make a mistake, you act like a jackass, let's say, and then you go back and you make an amendment. That's generally the way we think about the 10th step. But that's not the way I've looked at this step primarily. Even though that's a basic way to look at this, I think that there's a depth here that once you see what Bill wrote in the 12 and 12, this is a different animal.
Okay, you got your 12.
I do.
He's going to read out of the 12 and 12.
Okay. Now, I'm going to read some of this. I'm probably going to read a little more but it'll explain somewhat about what happened with me in that bar. It says, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. This is on page 88 in the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions book. It says, as we work the first 9 steps, we prepare ourselves for the adventure of a new life. But when we approach step 10, we commence to put our AA way of living to practical use, day by day, in fair weather or foul. Then comes the acid test. Can we stay sober, keep an emotional balance, and live to good purpose under all conditions? Yeah, that's the question. A continuous look at our assets and liabilities and a real desire to learn and grow by this means are necessities for us. We alcoholics have learned this the hard way. More experienced people, of course, in all times and places have practiced unsparing self-survey and criticism. Well, I've practiced survey and criticism of everybody else, not myself, okay? For the wise have always known that no one can make much of life until self-searching becomes a regular habit, until he is able to admit and accept what he finds, and until he patiently and persistently tries to correct what is wrong. Now, here's what was happening to me. When a drunk has a terrific hangover because he drank heavily yesterday, he cannot live well today. But there is another kind of hangover, which we all experience whether we are drinking or not. That is the emotional hangover. The direct result of yesterday's and sometimes today's excesses of negative emotion. That's what happened to me in the bar. Okay? Anger, fear, jealousy, and the like. If we would live serenely today and tomorrow, we certainly need to eliminate these hangovers. I felt hungover when I screamed at that guy and was walking out of the bar. Yet it all was removed when I went back in and cleaned it up. But I felt hungover. I felt heavy, like somebody setting concrete blocks on my head. Okay? This doesn't mean we need to wander morbidly around in the past. It requires an admission and correction of errors now. Now is italicized. It requires an admission, I had to admit it, and correction of errors now. I had to clean it up. I had to correct it. Our inventory enables us to settle with the past. When this is done, we are really able to leave it behind us. When our inventory is carefully taken and we have made peace with ourselves, the conviction follows that tomorrow's challenges can be met as they come. That's right.
We can handle it.
You're less volatile. See, the more you resolve and I'm going to talk about an experience that I had with this. I'll show you what I'm getting at here. Although all inventories are alike in principle, in other words, the ideas that you examine, the time factor does distinguish one from another. There's the spot check inventory, taken at any time of the day whenever we find ourselves getting tangled up. That's what happened to me at that bar situation. There's the one we take at day's end, when we review the happenings of the hours just past. That's not what I was doing in my early recovery. It was always the spot check because I was constantly getting tangled up. Okay?
So what you just read, we read that last sentence again.
There's the one we take at day's end when we review the happenings of the hours just past.
So is that the one upon when we're going to bed, we do our daily inventory?
Yeah, that's what we read in the big book.
Right. Now, that's different than promptly admitting when we're wrong. I mean, if we're doing, it's a rather keep going.
It's recognizing that you made a mistake and you haven't corrected it yet.
Yes,
day's end.
That's day's end. Okay.
Here's what he's going to say. He says, here we cast up a balance sheet, crediting ourselves with things well done, and chalking up debits where due. Then there are those occasions when alone or in the company of our sponsor or spiritual advisor, we make a careful review of our progress since the last time. Many AAs go in for an annual or semi-annual house cleanings. Many of us also like the experience of an occasional retreat from the outside world, where we can quiet down for an undisturbed day or so of self-overhaul and meditation. Aren't these practices joy killers as well as time consumers? Must AAs spend most of their waking hours drearily rehashing their sins of omission or commission? Well, hardly. The emphasis on inventory is heavy only because a great many of us have never really acquired the habit of accurate self-appraisal. Oh yeah, I was willing to examine myself, but I bullshit
I was going to
myself to
say,
no end.
yeah, what was that? Yeah, what does the mirror really look like?
Yeah. Once this healthy practice has become grooved, it will be so interesting and profitable that the time it takes won't be missed. I know that that's true because I'm experiencing it. No question about it.
Right.
For these minutes and sometimes hours spent in self-examination are bound to make all the hours of our day better and happier. At length, our inventories become a regular part of everyday living, rather than something unusual or set apart. Okay, now here he's going to get it. This is great now. Before we ask what a spot check inventory is, let's look at the kind of setting in which such an inventory can do its work. Okay, now this is my thing in the bar. Okay? It is a spiritual axiom. Now, the word axiom means truth. I had to look it up, I didn't know what it meant. So, it is a spiritual truth that every time we are disturbed, no matter what the cause, there is something wrong with us. Ooh.
Well, we kind of talked about that earlier.
Oh, yeah.
When something's bugging me the most, it's usually something that I'm bugged about myself.
Well, or it could be a grievance towards somebody else from your past. It doesn't have to be something you do. It can be a grievance towards somebody else that you felt hurt from.
An easy one is she cheated on me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's a good one.
So it is a spiritual axiom that every time we are disturbed, no matter what the cause, doesn't matter what the cause is, there is something wrong with us. With us is italicized. If somebody hurts us and we are sore, we are in the wrong also. Sounds crazy, doesn't it?
That's getting deep.
But are there no exceptions to this rule? What about justifiable anger? Well, it's all justified. Anger is justified by the story you're telling yourself.
Yes. You talked about this on day one with us on the show.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're one of the first ones that said it the way you did to me. And I ran with it, and I never picked your brain further. But my anger, I think you said, everyone's anger is justified by the story. They're justifying their anger with whatever they're angry about, what they're telling themselves, and that's why they're angry.
And they're telling you about it. They're telling you the story of why their anger is justified. Okay, I understand. Okay. What about justifiable anger? If somebody cheats us, aren't we entitled to be mad?
Entitled.
Oh, yeah. Can't we be properly angry with self-righteous folk? For us of AA, these are dangerous exceptions. We have found that justified anger ought to be left to those better qualified to handle it. Sounds like he sidestepped it, doesn't it? Sounds like he sidestepped the whole damn thing. I remember the first time I read it, I thought, are you kidding me? He just sidestepped the issue here, you know?
But now, the first time the first time you read this, when you, out of the 12 and 12, did you have your higher power? Do you remember?
No.
Okay. Because, no, go ahead, keep going.
Okay. Now, here's why these are dangerous exceptions. Few people have been more victimized by resentments than have we alcoholics. I'm victimized by my own resentment. My hatred is hurting me, not the guy I'm angry at.
Right.
Okay? It's hurting me. It mattered little whether our resentments were justified or not. Well, of course they're justified, Bill. A burst of temper could spoil a day, and a well-nursed grudge could make us miserably ineffective. Now he's going to clean it up a little bit. Nor were we ever skillful in separating justified from unjustified anger. As we saw it, our wrath was always justified. Well, of course, nobody gets angry without justification.
Yeah.
You know. Now look at this. Now, anger, that occasional luxury of more balanced people, could keep us on an emotional jag indefinitely. Isn't that something? Anger, that occasional luxury of more balanced people. We're not balanced very good. could keep us on an emotional jag indefinitely. These emotional dry benders often led straight to the bottle. Other kinds of disturbances, jealousy, envy, self-pity, or hurt pride did the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I'm going to give you a story in a minute of why I know this is true. And it really is based in the basic ideas of the 4-step inventory. So, a spot check inventory taken in the midst of such disturbances can be of very great help in quieting stormy emotions. Today's spot check finds its chief application to situations which arise in each day's march. Yeah, when I got tangled up and I thought this guy stole my money, I went crazy, that was in my day's march as I was going through my day, okay? The consideration of long-standing difficulties had better be postponed when possible to times deliberately set aside for that purpose. In other words, if you have a resentment from a long time, you should write that out in a 4-step inventory.
Okay.
It's not for a spot check inventory.
Right.
Okay, I'll read it again. The consideration of long-standing difficulties had better be postponed when possible to times deliberately set aside for that purpose. The quick inventory is aimed at our daily ups and downs, especially those where people or new events throw us off balance and tempt us to make mistakes. In all these situations, we need self-restraint, honest analysis of what is involved, a willingness to admit when the fault is ours, and an equal willingness to forgive when the fault is elsewhere.
That talks about your whole story. That last 3 sentences.
Yeah. We need not be discouraged when we fall into the error of our old ways, for these disciplines are not easy. We shall look for progress, not for perfection. Now, I'm going to give you an example of this. Okay. So, I know that this is true, and because I'd read that before, and I was new, I'm about a year sober,
Okay.
And I've done the inventories and stuff, and I've resolved a whole bunch of stuff, but stuff comes up as you go along in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And every once in a while, I'll bump into something where I get a reaction inside of myself to something somebody says or some way somebody acts. Okay?
All right.
Okay, so here's what happened. I'm a year sober. A guy asked me to sponsor. Okay? And he's 3 years sober. No, I felt kind of proud about that. I'm a year sober. He's 3 years sober. Boy, I must really be a spiritual giant or something, that he's asking me to sponsor him because he's sober longer than I am. See, I tell you this because there's an element of this in this story. Okay, so now I'm kind of prideful, proud. I think and this is back when I was sponsoring people when we would talk about problems, which I wouldn't do.
Yeah, now you don't.
Yeah, I'm not a junior psychiatrist. I'm not going to fix them. I stopped doing that. When I stopped fixing people and their problems, they quit calling me. They really, So anyway,
but on that same topic, once you stop doing that and you're still sponsoring those sponsees were getting probably more help.
Well, I just direct them into inventory today.
Yeah,
that's why they don't call me. Nobody wants to get directed into inventory, so they don't call me. They call somebody they can vent their crap with that'll join them in it. Mm-hmm. Join them in their woundedness.
Right.
So anyway, so I'm going to go into this sponsorship role with this guy, and every time I'm around him, I react negatively. I got a negative reaction. I don't like him. I don't like this guy. There's something. He's conniving. He's manipulative. I just don't like him.
Okay.
And then I go along, and all of a sudden I realize he's a thief. He's stealing in sobriety. Now he's 3 years sober. I stopped stealing within a year or so. Mm-hmm. I quit stealing things. Okay.
Because you were a big thief, you said, right?
Oh, constantly. I was stealing all my life.
Okay.
So, now here's a typical thing that people do, and I want to make this point because this is a big deal, guys. If you can hear this one, This is huge. Okay? There's a tendency to come into AA and change your behavior. Okay, that's good. I'm not knocking that. That's important to change your behavior.
Mm-hmm.
But stay judgmental about the behavior. Okay, stealing's bad. I stopped stealing within about a year. Okay, but I can't change that I used to steal, and I'm judgmental about stealing. Now I have brought my behavior into accord with my judgmentalness about the behavior. Okay? So now I'm not doing it anymore, so I feel better initially. That's good.
Yeah.
You feel better. Okay, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
This is the good is the enemy of the very best sort of thing.
Okay.
Okay, so now I feel good because I've stopped stealing,
Mm-hmm.
but I can't change that I used to steal, right?
Okay.
Because I used to steal.
Yeah.
So, and I'm judgmental about stealing. I've got a judgment. You're bad if you steal.
Yeah.
So guess what? I can't forgive myself, right?
Okay.
How can you forgive yourself when you're judgmental about it? Even though you change the behavior, it doesn't take you far enough.
Yeah.
All right. So now, this guy comes into my life, asks me to sponsor him. Now, he's 3 years sober and he's stealing. Here's where now here I'm judging time. Oh, he should be different because I stopped within a year. He's 3 years sober and he's still doing it. And I dislike this guy. I can't tell you. I hate him. And every time I'm around him, I'm trying to force him to change because I don't like how I feel when I'm around him. If he'd just change, I'd feel better.
Yep.
Okay? So now I set out to get him to change so I won't feel this pain that's inside of me when I'm around him.
Right.
Okay? Guess what the problem is? I'm judgmental about his stealing, which in turn reinforces my own hatred toward myself when I used to steal. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
It literally is, I'm hating myself outside of myself. And the more I come and try and force him to change and judge him on his behavior, the worse I feel. This happens in sponsorship all the time. And the sponsors try and get the sponsees to change so they won't feel the negativity that's inside of them because they've changed their behavior, but they haven't let the judgment go.
Is it I'm keep going.
This is probably the highest level that AA gets to, as far as I'm concerned, with this sort of thing of forgiveness. Okay?
But isn't this in turn, you need to forgive yourself?
Look, that's the outcome.
I didn't want to jump the. All right,
now, this is the outcome. So every time I get around him and I'm judgmental toward him, I feel like hell. I don't like how I feel, but I want him to change so I don't feel this. And what if I get him to change? Nothing's changed in me.
No.
It's going to come up again with somebody else, somewhere else, sometime, some way.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to keep coming up because the error is in me. Okay?
Yeah.
So now, I'm judgmental. I start attacking him, and I use the big book. I take the big book and I beat him over the head with it. You know, it says rigorously honest in here, and I slam him a few times with it. See? Well, guess what I'm saying to myself for when I used to steal? If he is bad, so am I. Okay? Well, I noticed how shitty I felt when I was around him, and I remembered what Bill wrote. It is a spiritual axiom that every time we are disturbed, no matter what the cause, there is something wrong with us. Whoa. Yep. I knew it. And I went, wow. I got to stop trying to change him and make him be different because I'm judging myself from my past the same way when I get harsh with him, I'm harsh with myself. And I feel the pain of the guilt that I'm carrying. And I started coming to him with compassion and understanding. So what if he's 3 years sober and he's still stealing? Hell, so what if he's 20 years sober and a guy's still he's not there yet. He hasn't come along yet. You don't have to beat him up over it. In fact, if you do, you'll reinforce the hatred toward yourself from your own guilt. The more I practiced having compassion and understanding for him, the more I was forgiving myself, because you're going to give that same thing to yourself that you're giving to him. If you give judgment toward him, you're giving judgment toward yourself. If you give tolerance and understanding to him, you're going to, and I practiced doing that. And you know what happened? The hatred went away inside of me for when I only changed my behavior but didn't let the judgment go. I dropped the judgment toward the behavior and it left me. That guy was giving me an opportunity to forgive myself by seeing him differently. This is the essence of the fourth column in the big book, Fourth Step.
Do they word it out though? Like you said, this is about the top that you feel.
It's the experience. When I wrote an inventory in the fourth column of the fourth step, I saw that my stories about these people were not accurate. My dad didn't ruin my life.
Right.
I made stupid choices and decisions, and my life fell apart. I made the choices out of selfishness, and it destroyed me, okay?
Oh.
I didn't want to be responsible, so I poured energy into hating my dad for what I did to myself. Who are you hating?
Yourself.
Who was I hating with this guy that I was sponsoring?
Yourself.
That's right. So this whole thing is about self-forgiveness.
Yeah.
And if you can see others differently, this is why the inventory process in AA, and I will never teach it any other way, is that you're literally just seeing your hatred for yourself and others when you're reactive.
God,
And it may not be that you acted that way. It may be a grievance towards somebody else from your past that you're angry at. But it is a grievance, and that's why I'm reactive.
This last 12 minutes on this show should be etched in stone. The way you worded just this last 2 minutes, the way it was worded, because I haven't heard it read exactly the way you just said it. I haven't read it anywhere where it says, this is about you forgiving yourself.
I know, but
And
that's
your
the outcome.
experience. Yeah, it is. It is.
What happens in the fourth step when you see others differently? You see yourself differently. Now, what if you look in the fourth step inventory and you look at others and you say, well, Dad, I see what a jerk you've been to me. Now I'm going to forgive you for killing me, for destroying me. That just means you're right. But what if you have an experience with God's help and he shows you something else, like you just made stupid choices and decisions, Rick. He didn't ruin your life. You ruined your own life by your choices. Oh my goodness. Then I see that my dad isn't guilty of what I thought. Doesn't mean he didn't drink through my childhood. Didn't mean he didn't act in different ways. That's not the point. My life was ruined by me, by my own choices and decisions, and I couldn't see it. But I projected the rap onto him, and then I hated myself outside of myself. I was using my dad to cause myself pain.
Right.
I was literally causing my own pain through how I saw my dad.
You're telling yourself your dad was the linchpin that caused all this.
That's right. So when I lifted the hatred off of him, I lifted it off of myself. And I have never felt guilty about my own kids and how they turned out. When they were drinking and one of them was having a lot of problems, I didn't react violently inside. Why? Because I wasn't holding my dad accountable.
Right. Because if you didn't fix that, this would have circled back to, oh, my kids are fucking up because of my dad.
No, and then I would have thought, my kids are screwed up because of me.
You. Right.
And you're going to carry that guilt, and then you're going to over-instruct on your kids and try and force them to shape up and be good so you won't hate yourself. And what do? You destroy your relationship with your kids because you're managing them,
right,
and trying to control them. My guilt, my reaction to these things is because of my own self-hatred, my own guilt.
Yeah, this is, like I said, this is good stuff.
Oh, this is
good stuff.
This is the fourth step inventory, but it's in a spot check inventory. I had the experience with that guy, and I got to tell you, I don't feel negative toward people who are stealing. So if I sponsor someone who's a thief, I'm not reactive, and I'm not trying to micromanage them or get them to change, so I'll feel better. I can let them be and just show him the inventory and let him have his own experience. I'm safer. in my.
So I guess with that experience you had with this guy, the stealing, feeling around him, what was it that you ended up doing to make it go away? Did you
I
run?
started coming into the relationship with him with a sense of compassion for his inability to change. Instead of judging him by, well, he's 3 years sober, he should change, I said, drop that.
Right. You were saying this to yourself because you're working it out.
And I'm literally coming with some compassion toward him. I don't remember if he changed or not. All I know is he looked different when I stopped judging him. And probably that's love. That's what love does. Love isn't judgmental.
No.
You don't force somebody.
Right.
No, this is huge. This is the essence of the inventory. And people are teaching the fourth step. Oh, you're guilty. You did all these terrible things, Dad. So now I'll forgive you for being a jerk and destroying my life. You don't get out of it doing that.
Mm-hmm.
You get out of it by seeing them differently. And you can't do it on your own. You need the help of a power greater than yourself. I was an atheist when I did it, and I got thoughts in my mind that changed how I viewed my dad. And in that sense, I got thoughts in my mind that changed how I viewed myself.
You hear what he's saying? Dotson is, you got a power greater than yourself was giving you some other thoughts.
Whether I believed in him or not, it didn't matter.
That's what's up.
I didn't even believe in him, and I'm getting help. Guys, this is the essence of the image. It isn't about being bad. It's about seeing others differently so you can see yourself differently.
Yeah.
My judgment of others is my judgment of myself. My forgiveness of others is my forgiveness of myself. You can't forgive yourself while you're judgmental toward others.
Yep. No,
there's no way out of this but to see them differently. And the inventory in the big book does it perfectly. And Bill states it right here one more time. It's a spiritual axiom that every time we are disturbed, no matter what seems to be the cause, there's an error in me. There's something wrong with me.
Now, I'm going to toot your horn a little bit here, Rick, because, yes, it is worded in here, and you were able to word it, I don't call it dummy it down. This is the essence, however you worded it, you opened my eyes to it. And like I said, I shared about it before you even got to this, is that usually when something's bugging us so much, it's something within. I know this. It's not been worded or laid out in front of me the way you just did.
I'm just telling you why. All I'm doing is explaining why.
But I'm over here, my mind just running like, all right, well, maybe you should write this down and put this on paper for other people. But I'll just hit replay on this podcast for people. I wrote it down. Hey, listen to this last 12 minutes. If you get anything out of this show, listen to this last 10, 15 minutes of this show, because that's more beneficial. That your experience of what you shared.
I'll give you another one.
I want it.
I'll give you another one.
I want it.
I'm sponsoring a guy, and I'm working for him. And he's got a big house not far from the club here. And he's abusive. He's an attorney, and he's abusive to people. And I mean, this guy was hurt when he was a kid, and I think he just became a bully and became a lawyer. He could bully people, you know? And he was absolutely outrageous the way he acted toward other people, screaming at them, he was abusive to people. He'd get them under his thumb, working for him and stuff, and then he was working on his house. Well, there were a number of us working over at this house, okay? And some of these guys I've known ever since. This is when I'm probably 3 years sober, 4 years sober, maybe best. And some of us had some long-term sobriety, when we were there, 4 or 5 years, things like that. And we're working for him, and this guy is acting so outrageous. Nobody likes him. But I got to tell you something. He treated me different than he did other people. He was always trying to get me to do plumbing on his house, and I had left the trades. I sold my tools. I didn't even remember the codes, and he's trying to push me into plumbing this place, and I don't have the master's license to do it. See, I can't pull the permits. And stuff. So anyway, the way this whole thing came out was I kept telling him I can't work. Okay, so now I'm working at the intergroup office,
Mm-hmm.
in Minneapolis. There for about 18 months. The job ended. Everybody left. They did a wholesale house cleaning.
Yep.
And I'm packing up my desk, and this guy calls me up and asks me to meet him at the Lincoln Dell. He does not know my job just ended. He's no awareness of this. Okay? So I meet him I pack my desk up. My job ended. I'm making $6 an hour there. Okay? So I walk into the Lincoln Dell. Here he's sitting with a plumber that I knew from years earlier named Randy Lane. And Randy had taught me how to plumb years earlier.
Okay.
A little bit here.
Yeah.
And I hadn't seen him in a long time, but I always liked him. Well, here he's sitting with this guy, and I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, what the heck is this? Well, Randy's going to pull all the permits on this big house he's got. We're talking a 5,000 square foot we're talking 11 bathrooms, 4 kitchens. This is a huge project.
Yeah.
Huge project.
Okay.
In a big house up on the hill from here. Well, we go in there and he's going to pull all the permits. They're going to buy me tools. He's going to show me the codes again. We're going to do it, and I'm going to go back into the trade. I was trying to avoid the trade at this point. So now we're working for him. Okay, now I walked out of a $6 an hour job into a $20 cash job.
And this is what, 30 years ago?
Yeah. 30. Yeah, at least.
So it's like making $60 today an hour. Yes.
Oh,
it's huge.
Yeah, it was huge
money.
cash.
Yeah.
It was cash on top of that at the time. See, so now you can't predict this is going to happen. So now here I am. I don't know what's going on, but I got nothing else to do. Why not make some money and work for him? So I did. Well, he was so abusive to everybody. These underlings. He always treated me decently, probably because he needed me, maybe more than he did them. But I don't even know that that's the case. I was sponsoring him. I went into a sponsorship, and he went off the deep end, got loaded, and he was really outrageous. And he was treating people really poorly on the job, and everybody disliked him, and so did I. I didn't like him, and I was judgmental toward him, and we'd talk behind his back with each other, and we'd sit there and commiserate and talk about what a jerk he was and all this sort of thing. And one day his cousin shows up, and they're screaming downstairs. And all of us were upstairs, a carpenter and a couple electrician and people, and we're all listening to this, and we just hope his cousin beats the crap out of him. You see, we're too spiritual. We don't want to do the beating, but we want somebody else to beat him. Okay? This is sad. I feel very sad that I had this attitude.
Right.
Okay? And I was about 3 years sober at the time, 4 years sober. We don't want to beat them, but we want somebody else to do the whooping, man, and we're all behind it. Yeah. So we let it happen. We knew it was going to that, and his cousin beat him.
Really?
And we relished, we rejoiced in that. I feel this was awful.
Yeah.
The way I felt about him. We hoped he got hurt. We got beat. This is really sad in my mind today. But that's where I was at. See, 4 years sober. So anyway, he loses his law practice. He gets disbarred. He loses the house. Everything fell apart. His whole life fell apart. Well, I was leaving, picking up some stuff, and he always paid me. I didn't have trouble everybody else had trouble getting paid. I got paid. He treated me different than he did other people. As I was leaving and I had my stuff, I wrote a letter to him. He was gone at the time, and I had come to some awareness about some of this stuff, and I didn't like how I'd act.
Right.
So I sat down and I wrote him a note, and I said, "Thank you for the work. I appreciate what you did for me here." I said, "I know I was judgmental toward you at times, and I really regret being that way." And I wrote some things in there, and I told him how I felt about my behavior was not acceptable to me. And I left that in a mail thing, and with his key and stuff, and then I left, and that was the end. And I didn't see him for years. Years later, he gets sober. He was at the mission over in St. Paul.
Mm-hmm.
I do a meeting over there.
Yeah.
He ended up in there. And he was in trouble. He lost everything. And he started back into the program, and he said something to me, and I didn't have any sense of this, and I didn't do any of this because of it. He says to me one day, he says, "You know, the reason I came back into the program was because I knew there were people who would put principles above personalities. That's what I did. I put principles above personalities with him. And I saw my mistakes and I cleaned it up. And it actually had an impact on him coming back. And I didn't intend that. I was just doing it to clean up my crap because I didn't like the way I felt and the way my attitude toward him. And people know when you've got an attitude toward them. And I didn't like the way I'd acted near the end of that because I worked there for about 2 years. Wow.
Yeah.
But he told me that. He said that he saw that there were people, because he had a harsh personality, man, and people didn't like him. A lot of people don't like him now, and he's been sober quite a while now. But he's always treated me decently, even after.
He's still around.
He's still around, and he still treats me decent. I've seen him treat other people very poorly.
I mean, prior to the letter, you still just maybe the spot. You know why he was nicer to you, or
I have no idea. I just don't know. All
I mean, it really doesn't matter.
I don't know. He's always been decent with me. He's been terrible with other people. Everybody else is judging him to no end. I stopped judging him. When I stopped judging him, he acted different towards me. I practiced stepping back from the hatred, but I got caught in it at one point.
Right.
See? So these are things that happen along the way. I haven't told that story in years, but these are things that happen, and I've had to clean up my mess, and I'm so grateful I did, because when I left there, I didn't have any bad blood. There was no ill will between us, and I straightened out my crap with him, and I treated him as best I could.
Oh, that's awesome. We did a good thorough 10-step talk, I think, tonight, huh? We made it through our well, it's only 5 paragraphs in the big book, and we got some good stories. It's always great having you on. I love it. I've got some reoccurring listeners that are, is Rick and Jesse back on you? When is their date? Do you know what your next date is with us?
I can tell you in a minute.
Yeah, because I need to start getting these posted better. We're going to start taking some other approaches with some advertisement. And, I mean, we haven't really put it in stone yet, but once we get to 12, I'd love to keep it going. Just keep rotating this.
Well, we can do some other stuff,
Yeah.
too. We could do some topic stuff and things and that are relevant to the steps. And like relationships with women and things like that, from a male perspective anyway.
Yeah.
Because that's all I got, And I've had plenty of things happen along the way. Some of it.
You touched on a few things, but it's definitely some stuff. I've got a laundry list of questions that I just know better than to start bringing up during our step shows. It can bring us in a whole different direction. And
you mean right now you do?
I always have.
Are you getting stuff you mean on the?
I have notes.
No, I mean from the listeners.
Oh no, from listeners. With most of our shows, there's not a ton of interactions with questions. We had a few people post when I was asking about laurels, and our audience loves to answer some questions when I'm falling short of information. But yeah, the interaction aspect, there's, like I said, re-listening to the show, we have no issues. People can re-listen tomorrow and every day moving forward. No one has issues pulling up the shows, but getting it tonight while we're live, YouTube, no problem. But through the Facebook, people are having tough times getting on while we're live. So it's something I need to get addressed.
November 4th is the next one.
November 4th.
Step 11.
Okay, that's the first Friday. That is when my girl is leaving. All right, yep, I'm going to do some closing stuff. And so, again, moving forward, if anyone has anything that they'd like to see us add to the podcast, any ideas for the podcast, I don't want to say like, oh, we're getting stagnant with the show. I've got a couple weeks coming up with some couples coming on. Next week, we're going to have Jesse and Ashley on the show. They're a strong couple in recovery. Next month, we're going to have Kenzie and Kyle on the show. I've got some things in the works for the show. Always trying to grow the audience, the viewership. But my key thing is I want to make sure that we're getting the information across that's helping. I've always said this, like there's so many different roads to the finish line with recovery. My goal is to make sure people are finding happiness. Like I'm not going to tell you there's only one way to find recovery. There's only one. There's only you got to. You have to. No, I'm not going to say all that. We've had so many different guests on the show that have shared about so many different ways that they have found their serenity. So I don't knock it. Like I'm here as a host to help people share their message, share their experience. That's all I'm about. That's what I'm about. So if there are ideas or anything people would like to see us do, or like I say, Rick and Jesse come back on. They're right now our only reoccurring guests. So if there's questions or what we're doing every month, we're hopping to the next step. And then if you guys have any ideas or you guys want to hear anything out of our guests, Rick or Jesse, moving forward, did we make this so December? Yeah, the first of the year we'll be done with our 12 steps.
Right.
Yeah, I think we played that out right. We'll take a couple months of going down different topics, whatever the case is, whatever you guys want to hear, or whichever direction you want to see. Like I've always talked about, this is your show. We do this as a networking situation for help.
Right, and we don't have to come back every month.
Yeah,
either,
and it's whatever.
Quarterly or half a year, or whatever you want to do.
So, with all that said, boom, I got them on here. All right, perfect. Well, I think this is a great show. Step 10, next month, the first Friday of next month, we will have Rick and Jesse back on for Step 11. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood it. Praying only for knowledge of His will for us in the power to carry that out. And we'll go into depth on that. Jesse will be back, hopefully. He was in Kansas.
He's in Kansas.
Yeah, we're in a group message, and I had my phone on silent, so I didn't hear the responses. I said, hey, message me when you guys get to the door, I'll let you in. And Rick out of the car, he's like, I told him to click his heels 3 times to get home. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, he's in Kansas. It's Wizard of Oz jokes. All right. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Before we head out, what have you been grateful for?
Well, I'll tell you, Tim, here again, I don't always get opportunities to talk about some of this stuff, and it's more in depth with this here, so it's really nice to have an opportunity, because I've got so many different, especially men's stuff, I got so many different stories about things that happened along the way on that, and it's a great vehicle here for to be able to share some of these ideas, because if I do an AA talk, you're very limited in what you can do, and the workshops we do a little more in depth with stuff. So
that's the other thing. Thank you. The 4-step workshop every Wednesday, 6:30 here in the auditorium at 2218 First Avenue South. Like I said, it doesn't matter where you're at in your steps. It doesn't matter where you're at in the book. Come on down with an open mind, and you'll get something.
With a closed mind.
You'll get something of great value.
And fight with us. I don't care.
You heard him. I didn't say it. He did. But yeah, you will come down and get something of great value. So check it out. It's free. If you got a buck, you throw it in the basket. Same as any meeting. But yeah, thank you guys all for sticking through us with whatever technical issues there may have been. We're figuring it out still. Until next week, stay safe. Fight for yourself. You're worth it. If you are struggling, please reach out. This whole mental health thing, I don't know if maybe I've seen it on the news or what, but we understand it's real. But see a doctor if you need to, or reach out, get to some meetings. You don't need to be alone. Use this platform to reach out if you need to, whatever the case is. I put my number on here every week. You can find me on Facebook, Timothy J. Warren. Just try to get outside yourself. You don't have to struggle if you don't want to. Fight for yourself. You're worth it. All right. Till next week. We love you. Bye. Wow, internet was really, really laggy tonight. I think it's going off my phone.